A black luxury SUV idled at the edge of a dead street that no longer appeared on most maps, its engine humming impatiently as if even the machine wanted to leave. And inside it sat Daniel Mercer, a self-made millionaire whose name was etched into glass towers and whispered in boardrooms across America, staring at the sagging remains of the house he had not seen in 34 years. The house he had once run from barefoot and bleeding. The house he had spent his entire adult life pretending no longer existed. And he told himself, again, that this visit was purely transactional, that he was here as the owner now, not the boy, that the demolition crew would arrive in the morning, and by sunset the structure would be reduced to splinters and dust, one final erasure. Yet his hand lingered on the door handle longer than necessary as memory pressed in from all sides, because the house looked smaller than he remembered, but heavier somehow, bowed beneath the weight of things left undone, windows dark like sealed eyes, porch slanted as if exhausted from holding secrets. And when he finally stepped out, the cold air carried the scent of rot and rain and something else, old paper maybe, or regret. And each step toward the front door felt like crossing years instead of feet, the key heavy in his palm despite being newly cut, because the old lock had long since rusted beyond recognition. And when the door creaked open, the sound echoed far louder than it should have, as if the house itself recognized him and exhaled, dust blooming into the dim afternoon light as Daniel stepped inside and felt the strange vertigo of standing in a place that remembered him better than he remembered himself. The living room frozen in decay, with peeling wallpaper and a collapsed couch that still held the faint outline of where his mother used to sit late into the night, humming softly when she thought he was asleep. And he told himself not to think of her, not now, because thinking led to. Feeling and feeling led to questions he had buried under success and numbers and polished interviews. Yet the floorboard beneath his shoe groaned in the exact same way it had when he was 8, and the sound hit him like a punch, because he remembered being told to walk softly so he wouldn't wake his father, remembered fear disguised as obedience. And as he moved deeper into the house, rooms unfolded like chapters he had sworn he would never reread. The kitchen with its cracked linoleum and the faded mark on the wall where height had once been measured in pencil strokes, his own name written there crooked and hopeful, erased halfway through as if someone had changed their mind about letting him grow. And then the hallway narrowed, shadows stretching unnaturally long, leading to the door he had avoided thinking about most, the locked back room his father had always said was none of your business. The room Daniel had never entered until the night everything ended, the night police. Lights painted the walls red and blue. The night he left in the back of a social worker's car with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes and a belief that whatever was behind that door had ruined his family. And yet now, decades later, standing there again, he realized something didn't add up, because the lock on the door had been replaced recently, not rusted like the others, and a thin line of light leaked from beneath it as if someone, or something, had been inside not long ago, his pulse spiking as 1,000 rational explanations failed to settle his nerves. And when he turned the knob, the door opened easily, revealing a small room he did not recognize at all, because it wasn't the hoarder's cave of broken tools and rage he had imagined for years, but something eerily deliberate. Shelves lining the walls stacked with neatly labeled boxes, journals arranged in careful rows, framed photographs wrapped in plastic, and at the center, a simple wooden desk holding a single envelope. With his name written in handwriting so familiar, his knees nearly gave out. His mother's handwriting, precise and gentle, the same hand that used to trace circles on his back when storms rattled the windows. And shaking, Daniel opened the envelope and began to read. And with every line, the version of his past he had built his life upon began to crack. Because the letter wasn't an apology or a farewell, but a confession, revealing that his father had not been the monster Daniel believed, that the rage he remembered had been fear, that the locked room had not been a prison of secrets, but a shield, because his mother had been hiding something far more dangerous than anger, evidence, documents, recordings that proved the town's most respected businessman, a man whose name now sat on hospital wings and scholarship funds, had been running an illegal operation through shell companies that poisoned the water supply for years, and Daniel's parents had discovered it accidentally. And when they tried to expose it, they were threatened, followed, their phones tapped, their lives squeezed smaller and smaller until paranoia and exhaustion hollowed them out. And the night Daniel remembered as abandonment had actually been a planned disappearance, his parents' attempt to protect him by making it look like everything fell apart. And as he read on, the twist deepened, because the letter explained that his mother hadn't died of illness as he'd been told, but had staged her death with help from a journalist who later vanished, and that his father had taken the blame publicly to divert attention, dying in prison years later under circumstances that were never investigated. And the room around Daniel seemed to tilt as the truth landed with crushing clarity. That the house wasn't abandoned because no one cared, but because it was too dangerous to draw attention to, because hidden beneath the floorboards were copies of files that powerful people had spent decades erasing. And as if summoned by the thought, a floorboard near the desk shifted slightly under his foot, revealing a metal latch. And when he pried it open, he found hard drives wrapped in oilcloth, notebooks filled with dates and names that now populated headlines. And suddenly Daniel understood why the lock was new. Because someone else had been here first. Someone who knew the value of what this house still held. And the realization came just as headlights washed through the hot front windows and footsteps crunched on the porch, voices low and urgent, and Daniel's heart hammered as the past collided violently with the present, forcing him to choose between finishing what his parents started or walking away yet again. And in that moment, he saw his entire life differently. Every promotion, every risk, every inexplicable instinct to fight systems instead of people, not as coincidence but inheritance. And when the door burst open and a man stepped inside with a gun raised, Daniel didn't run, because for the first time he wasn't the scared boy escaping the house, but the man who owned it, the man who finally understood it. And what followed wasn't the demolition anyone expected, but an exposure that rippled outward, bringing down institutions, reopening cold cases, restoring names that had been smeared for decades. And as dawn broke over the wrecked street days later, the house still stood, not because it couldn't be destroyed, but because Daniel chose to preserve it, converting it into a foundation, a living archive, proof that the past doesn't disappear just because it's inconvenient. And standing on the rebuilt porch months later, watching reporters gather where weeds once grew, Daniel realized the greatest twist of all wasn't what he found inside the house, but what the house had preserved inside him all along. The truth waiting patiently for him to come home and finally listen.